Hello, I'm Anna Maria Tremonti, and this is The Current.
Hate is a fire which burns and eats the one from inside. Hate leads you to irrational thinking and behavior. It's a chronic and severe and destructive sickness.
Well, that is Izzeldine Abu-Laish, the Palestinian doctor who we heard from in our last half hour, along with two of his daughters. In January of 2009, Dr. Abu-Laish's Gaza home was hit by Israeli tank shells, and three of his daughters and one niece were killed. But as he has explained, he's chosen not to be overtaken by hate. John Splitting the Sky Bonkore knows how difficult a decision that is and how hard it is to follow through. He's a member of the Mohawk First Nation. He spent years consumed by anger and hate until he too decided there had to be a better way. John Splitting the Sky Bonkore is in Chase, British Columbia. Good morning.
Good morning.
You've been on a very long journey, but give us the shorthand. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York.
And your dad died when you were young, but in some ways you lost your mom too. What happened?
Well, my father was working for U.S. rubber plant in Buffalo, New York, working two jobs. He and 10 other guys were asked to go inside of these tanks to spray paint them, and they weren't issued safety precautions, and so all 11 men died the next day.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 6 years old.
Okay.
And I had four brothers and sisters, and my mother became a single native Mohawk woman who was a single mother. And in my case, I was put into, I ended up in a boarding school, and I by myself, and basically was a victim of attempted sexual assaults and numerous racist beatings by the predominantly white staff at the boarding school.
And how did you react to that?
I was very fearful, but then I began, as I resisted, I began to resist the attacks, and the more it happened, the more resistance I put up, and eventually I became a very angry person in terms of the kind of abuse I was receiving at the hands of those that were running the institutions.
And so by the time you got out of school, how old were you?
I was just about 18.
Okay.
And then I attempted, out of pure desperation, I had no skills whatsoever, and I attempted a robbery at a mom and pop store, and I was apprehended by two of the proprietors, Italian brothers, and I was taken to jail, and my court-appointed attorney told me that I would probably be released on probation. But when I went to court, the judge basically said, effing savages like you belong in a cage. And I was given two 4-year sentences to run wild, so 8 years.
What do you mean to run wild?
Well, in other words, they instead of running concurrent together as one, I was given 2 4 years to run consecutively. Yeah, consecutively.
Okay, and let's just stop for a minute and talk about what was going through your head at this point in your life then.
Well, I became very upset that this judge said was as racist as he was, and yet as soon as those bars slammed again on me, I knew that it was going to be the beginning of a long sojourn. And of course, there's a lot of fear and apprehension going into a state prison system. And actually ended up in a number of prisons, including the infamous Attica state prison.
Attica was one tough place. Why'd they send you there?
Well, I don't know. I shouldn't have been there. I was only 19 years old, and technically you're only supposed to be there from the age 21 on.
So they sent you to Attica just before the riots. What happened when the riots happened? Where were you in all of that?
There was a rebellion that happened, and I was in the quarter A block, and there was about 60 of us that tried to knock this fence down, this gate to get to the rest of the prison, and in rebellion. And we knocked the cast iron gate over, and a guard that was in there was hit over the head with the cast iron gate, and I was charged with killing the guard because I was one of the people that was knocking that gate over.
You were with 60 other people, and they charged how many of you with killing the guard?
I was the only one. Ultimately, one other person was charged by the name of Charles Pernasalis, but he was later not convicted. So I ended up with 20 years to life in prison as a result of that.
And so all of that time in prison, what were you like? Were you angry? Were you hateful? What kinds of things were you thinking?
Yes, I became very angry and very hateful because I was constantly being threatened with my life to be killed by the New York State troopers or by the prison guards. And I had to basically sleep with one eye open. And on a number of occasions, they attempted to kill me.
What does it mean to be hateful?
Well, it means that you're very angry, man, at people for their for their racist attitudes, for the way that they beat you and the way that they attack you, the way that they discriminate against you, the way that they put constant pressure on you. So it really was a survival mechanism to be angry enough to be able to fight back without totally submitting to these very rigid authoritarian systems and peoples that ran these power trips on us as inmates inside the penal system.
What did that hatred do to you?
I was blinded by my hatred and my anger at times, and I became a very powerful fighter. I was a semi-pro boxer, and I basically would fly off the handle on a moment's notice if you upset me, and I severely hurt a person in a fight one time, and I realized that this person almost died, and while I was watching this guy bleeding, I was totally shocked at how senseless it is for people to be beaten and attempting to hurt and kill one another in the fit of anger. And at that point, I had to really get in control of myself. Otherwise, I would have been otherwise, I'd have ended up in prison ultimately for life, and I probably would have ended up getting killed.
So, but by the time you say you began to ask yourself why, you were already out of prison and you got into a fight.
Yes, because I was still carrying a lot of anger from a lot of the abuse that I had.
So when you realized that and you started making those changes, what things changed for you as you looked at yourself and tried to change yourself?
Well, what happened to me is I became a person. I became a very rational human being. I spent hours and thousands of hours of study. I studied a number of things on political, social movements, the history of my people as a Mohawk person, indigenous peoples. I found myself becoming a much better, much more productive, positive human being. I involved myself in organizations to make positive social change, and eventually I utilized my skills and my abilities and my passion for justice and humanity. I've eventually become an accomplished movie star, actually. And so I was able to put a lot of the negative aside and to learn to deal with people for who they really are. And I found out that the human race, basically as a whole, are good people. We just have factions within the human race that seem to exploit and don't care who they exploit and who they hurt in the process. And though I don't tolerate it, I don't react to it. And I try to rationalize everything I do with anyone I come in contact with the best possible way that I can, and have worked with a lot of people over the years in a really good way.
Now, over the years, you have been involved in everything from the Gustafson Lake protest, which was an armed standoff, to being arrested while protesting against a visit from George W. Bush. What's the difference between that and the hate you said you felt earlier in your life?
Well, the hate that I felt earlier in my life was really just a reaction. I was a reactionary, and I was blinded by my anger. So I acted on impulses until I realized that I could have almost killed somebody and hurt somebody bad. Today, I function out of love, very rationally.
What's the difference between anger and hate?
Anger and hate. To me, anger is a response to something that you hate. And I believe for the most part, and I am analyzing the whole nature of the question I hate over the years, I believe that my hatred came actually from a sense of fear, of feeling powerless in the face of oppressive regimes.